In this video, we're going to start creating a web version of the Instagram application. I had this project on my resume before, and many interviewers wanted to know more about it, so I want to share this with you. The tech stack includes Node.js and Express for the backend, MongoDB for the database, and React for the front end. So let's get started. Before we start the project, I want to mention that you need to have Node.js installed. If you do, then we can go ahead and create a directory where our project will be located. So let's run mkdir instaclone. Then we're going to move inside cd instaclone and create our Node application using npm init. This command is going to ask you a few questions about your project. So the only one required is the name. I'm going to call it insta backend. I'll skip everything else. Entry point will be index.js, git repository keywords, author will be coding, haven. Is this okay? Yes. So now we're going to check our package.json and change it from index.js to server.ts, since we're working actually with TypeScript. Now let's create a new directory called source, and let's create a server.ts file. Touch service.ts, and we're going to place it inside our source. Our next step is going to be installation of Express, so npm install Express. And after that, we're going to our server.ts and say import Express from Express. Also, we need to install course, so let's go ahead and say npm install course. I'm going to import it as well. Import course from course. Again, this is our cross origin. Now I'm going to say const app equals Express, const port equals 3000, that will be our default, app use course, this is our middleware. Let's just write it down. So basically we want to make sure our front end will be able to send requests to our backend, so will not be blocked by course. So we're allowed any origin to make requests to our backend. Next one, we're going to say app listen port, going to say console.log listening on port and our variable port. This is a very simple setup for our server.ts. And you notice that we did not define any routes in our server.ts, so let's create a new directory named routes and create a new file, touch user routes.ts. So inside we are actually going to define our routes related to our user. So let's say import route from Express, and now I'm going to say const router equals router. So we're going to say router.get and just double quotes. I want to make a comment. So basically this will be an endpoint that will return us a user data from our profile. So it's going to be a dynamic route. Imagine about user ID. We can go to user ID like 1234, we can go to user 1235 and etc. So basically this will return us a profile. So we're going to say /ID, and the method that is going to actually execute this one will be get user profile. We don't have it yet. We're going to create it in our controller. But for now, let's say export default router. So we created our first route. Let's go ahead and update server.ts. We say app.use, and in parentheses, we're going to say user, and we're going to say user route. So for when user will go to localhost 3000/user, the user route will execute. And user routes are actually our file name, so this is where we're getting it from. Now let's go ahead and create our controllers. Let's type mkdir controllers, touch user controller, ts. Place it inside our controller folder. And inside we're going to say export const get user profile. This is our method from our routes. So equals async, it's going to be a synchronous function. And in our parentheses, we're going to say rec any, res any. So request response, right? Body will contain our ID parameter that will go from rec params, right? So it will be our endpoint. It's going to be 123, 1234. Remember, that's our ID, right? That we will read from our parameters. And now we're going to say const profile data await user service that get user by ID, and in parentheses we're going to say ID. The last step is just to send our data back to front end. So let res that send, and in parentheses profile data. This is what our client will receive. Now let's create a service. mkdir service folder, and we're going to say touch user service.ts. This file is going to be responsible for business logic. again, we put it inside our services, and we're going to say export const get user by ID, because this is a method our controller calls from our user service. So async ID will be string, and we're going to say let response equals. And now I'm going to type everything that we're going to send to our front end. So ID 1234. We're going to say username. Let's call it the code in heaven. We're going to type user account name, number of posts, number of followers, number of people who is following us, profile description, thread name, profile image source, list of posts. This will be an empty array. And return response. So now, what is that? This is our mock data. Our response is imitating return from our database. So, and this data we're sending back, imitating. We're going to create actual response from our database in the next videos. So let's update user controller and import user service. So I'm going to type import everything as user service from our user service. Awesome. So let's do the same thing for our user routes. So instead we're going to say import get user profile from controller. Now let's follow the rules of strict typing and create a type to define our response object. So this is a good practice, and after all we're working with TypeScript, so let's create export type user profile. I'm going to copy and paste everything from our response and change our strings to type strings. So ID is going to be string, username, user account name, and profile description. So profile image source. Number of posts will be number of followers and following number, and list of posts. Oh, thread name, string or null. So list of posts, I think it deserves to have its own type. So export type, let's call it images, and it's going to have ID, it's going to be string as well. Image source, again, it's a string. Also, we're going to have author and type. They're both going to be strings. And our list of posts is going to be arrays of these images. Now let's go ahead and actually add some diversity to our get user by ID. Right now we return only one mock-in data, but maybe we can create another one. So let's just say let response of user profile type. It's going to be undefined. And now we're going to say if our ID equals 1, 2, 3, and 4, then we're going to assign our response to our first mock data. Else, we're going to create a different object of our response. It's just going to be a new object with ID, for example, 1, 2, 3. So let's just copy and paste our previous response and change the data. So response ID 1, 2, 3, username Michael C, user account name, let's call it Michael C, number of posts 456, number of followers also 190, number of following 156. Profile description working out is awesome. I also have a profile image source I already got from Pixabay, so I'm just going to copy and paste it here. And our list of posts, I'll keep the same empty array. Now, what I actually want to do, I want to create a new file named temp data. So touch tempdata.ts. And what we're going to do here, you remember our list of posts. So right now we're going to import our images and create two variables that will hold array of these images. So when we go to our profile of Instagram, we can see all user images, right? So this is what it's going to represent. And our backend will send it to our front end. So we're going to say export const images, and type is going to be images, array of images. All right, so now we're going to assign it to array, and this array will already have an object that I prepared. And each of these objects is going to have the same properties that our image have. So it's going to be image source, ID, author, and type. Image source is from Pixabay. This little kitten is an example of our images. Our next step is to create a second mock data for profiles for our second profile. So export const, let's just call it second images, and the type will be the same, array of images. And I already have prepared the data that we're going to use. Again, it's the same property. It will be source, author ID, and obviously the source will be a different pictures, right, related to our actual working out, because this is our second mock profile is about. So our last step is actually to create TypeScript configuration file, so we'll be able to actually run our server and compile our TypeScript into our JavaScript. So let's just go ahead and in our root instaclone project create a new file and name it tsconfig.json. So inside I want you to place this code. I already prepared this, but basically it's a compiler options, right? Our target is ES 2020, it's CommonJS, and our root directory is going to be source, right? And output directory will be dist. And this is where our server.js will be located. So we have to go right now and change our package.json, because remember, in package.json, we have server.js, right? So we're changing it to dist/server.json because, I'm sorry, server.js. This is where it's going to be. So let's update our script and say dev. And now we're going to say npx ts-node source/server.ts. So we're just telling our project to compile server.ts from source, and our project is going to run our dist server.js. So let's go ahead and run our project. npm run dev. So it's going to compile it, and I have to install TS Node, yes. And now let's go ahead to localhost 3000. It's listening in our port. And now we're going to be user. Let's do 1, 2, 3, 4. And here's what we got here. We have ID, oldest username, and that's what we're going to send to our front end. And if we're going to do 1, 2, 3, this is our other profile. So thank you so much for watching this video. In the next episode, we're going to create a front end for our profile section. So don't forget to hit like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the video. I also want to remind you that I have a Telegram channel where you can reach out to me directly. And I have my own blog with the videos and even more programming resources. So happy coding, and I'll see you in the next video.